So good morning. Today we're going over 1.8 part 1, which is solving absolute value equations. Now I'm going to go over how to solve absolute value equations. If you look at number 1, we have 2x minus 5 is equal to 3. But remember, to solve for absolute value equations, inside of this absolute value, you can get a positive or a negative number. So you will have to equal this absolute value to a positive and a negative number. The positive being 2x minus 5 equals to 3, which is actually what we originally have. And 2x minus 5 is equal to negative 3. Now we do that because if we were to get negative 3 inside of the absolute value, it still will turn to positive 3. So we can keep going. Now we're going to go ahead and add 5 on both sides. So we get 2x is equal to 8. We divide it by 2. And we get x is equal to 4. And then we do the same thing for the negative 3. We add the 5, so we get 2x is equal to 2. We divide by 2, and we're left with x is equal to 1. So you get two answers. You get x is equal to 4 and x is equal to 1. Now it is important to know, if you happen to have an absolute value is equal to a negative number, before you even try and solve it, that would be a no solution. Just because you cannot get a negative number from an absolute value. You can separate them to equal a negative number once you start, but if originally this happened to be a negative 3, that would have been a no solution. We have one of those in the next page, so I'll point it out when we get to it. Now, starting number 2, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. 5x is equal to 20, and then 5x is equal to negative 20. We go ahead and divide by 5 on both sides. We get x is equal to 4. And if we do it again on the other side, we get x is equal to negative 4. And those are your answers for this problem. For number 3, we do the same thing. Negative 3x is equal to 10. And negative 3x is equal to negative 10. So when we divide by negative 3, I'm just going to leave it as an improper fraction of x is equal to negative 10 over 3. And then here we divided by negative 3. Again, I'm going to leave it as an improper fraction, but this time it's positive 10 over 3. So these are your solutions. I'll leave it up there while I do 4. Now, for 4, the first thing I'm going to do is trying to get the absolute value by itself. So I would start by subtracting the 3. So you get 5, and then the absolute value of x is equal to 25. We then divide by 5. Just like you would usually do to solve an equation, you try to leave that absolute value by itself. So you get the absolute value of x is equal to 5. So we get x is going to equal positive 5, and x is going to equal negative 5. So in the other ones, you guys notice we always had the absolute value already by itself. But for the last one, we didn't, so we just rearranged stuff to get the absolute value by itself. Alright, so for 5, the absolute value is already by itself. So I'm just going to go ahead and do 2x minus 3. Oops. X minus 3 is equal to 11. And then 2x minus 3 is equal to negative 11. I'm going to go ahead and start solving it by adding 3. So we get 2x is equal to 14. We divide it by 2, and we get x is equal to 7. If I add 3, we get 2x is equal to negative 8. We divide by 2, and we get x is equal to negative 4. Again, those would be your two solutions. All right, for number 6, I'll leave 5 up there while I work on 6. I'll start by subtracting the negative 4. So I end up with negative absolute value 3x plus 6 is equal to negative 3. Now, because we want to make sure this absolute value is by itself, I'll divide everything by negative 1 in order to cancel it out. So I'm left with absolute value of 3x plus 6 is equal to positive 3. Because the 3 became positive, I can go ahead and keep going. So it's going to be 3x plus 6 is equal to 3. And 3x plus 6 is equal to negative 3. I'll go ahead and subtract the 6 from both sides. So I'll get 3x is equal to negative 3. Divide by 3. and I get x is equal to -1. I'll do the exact same thing for the other side, and I get 3x is equal to -9. I'll divide by 3 on both sides, and we get x is equal to -3. So for number 7, again, I want to make sure that the absolute value stays by itself. So I'll go ahead and subtract the 6 first. So I get 3 absolute value of x plus 5. It's going to equal 9. I'll divide everything by 3. So I get the absolute value of x plus 5 is equal to 3. From then I can go ahead and do, well, x plus 5 is equal to 3. And then x plus 5 is equal to -3. So I can subtract the 5 on both sides, and I'll get x is equal to -2. And I'm going to get x is equal to -8. All right, so for number 8, I will subtract the 20. Once I do that, I get an absolute value of 2x minus 4 is equal to -8. Now, like I mentioned before, this is the one I was going to point out. Here we have a negative. Because this is a negative and an absolute value can never equal a negative number, this is a no solution. So you would just write no solution, and you can keep going with anything else. Now, for 9, I know there's 2 absolute values, but don't forget we do the exact same steps. We were going to do x minus 1 is going to equal positive 3x plus 2. And we have x minus 1 is going to equal the -3x plus 2. So even if you have absolute values on both sides, as long as they're by themselves, you can do this anyway. Because at the very end, you know they're going to turn positive. It's going to be fine. I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms. So I'm going to subtract the 3x on both sides. And I'm going to get -2x minus 1 is equal to 2. I'll add the 1. I'll get -2x is equal to 3. I'll divide by -2. And I end up with x is equal to -3/2. Then I do the same thing for the other side, but first I have to distribute that negative. So I'll get x minus 1 is equal to -3x minus 2. So I'll go ahead and add the 3x. So I'll get 4x minus 1 is equal to -2. I'll go ahead and add the 1. So I'll get 4x is equal to -1. We'll divide by 4, and we get x is equal to -1/4. So these are your 2 solutions. All right, for 10, we do the same thing. We're going to start with x plus 3 is going to equal 2x plus 1. And then we do again x plus 3 is going to equal negative, in parentheses, 2x plus 1, because I have to distribute that negative. So I'm going to go ahead and solve the positive one first by subtracting 2x. So I get -x plus 3 is equal to 1. I'll subtract 3, and we get -x is equal to -2. That becomes x is equal to positive 2. Now for the second one, I'm going to distribute that negative to get x plus 3 is equal to -2x minus 1. I'm going to go ahead and add the 2x. So we get 3x plus 3 is equal to -1. I'll subtract the 3 from both sides, and we get 3x is equal to -4. We divide by 3, and we get x is equal to -4/3. So again, this being your 2 solutions.